All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr previewing the two other games on Wednesday night in SEC basketball. I've already previewed Florida at Alabama. You can check that out in another video. But now let's talk about Missouri at Oklahoma, Tennessee at Ole Miss. We start with the Tigers and the Sooners, 7 p.m. Central Time, ESPN, SEC Network Plus. Is that on the Plus, Max? Not even getting this game on the normal SEC Network? Is that right?
It is on Plus.
Oh, come on.
Disgrace.
The Sooners and the Tigers on the Plus. Are you kidding me? In Norman. Big bubble game for the Sooners. You guys will find it and watch it any way you can. Using legal means, that is. I'm baffled by this, but it happens, I guess, throughout the course of a scheduling cycle in TV. So it's like first game of the year, I think, on ESPN Plus,
Yeah,
SEC game, or whatever it is, SEC Network Plus. But aside from that, there is going to be a game played, and again, we kind of know the stage is set for this one. I mean, Oklahoma is in a must-win mode now until the end of the season, really. They're 4-12 in SEC play. This would be a big one. They go to Texas on Saturday. Have to win both, in my opinion, to have a chance to make the tournament. Meanwhile, for Missouri, coming off of that, really, like we said, I think you could certainly classify it as their most disappointing loss of the season based on the fact that they had the game won, and then, you had to finish there to lose it in overtime. So Missouri's going to finish up this week at Oklahoma and against Kentucky. But, for the Tigers, this is all about seeding right now, I think, if they're still trying to get back into that top 4 seed type scenario. And meanwhile, again, like we said, Max, for the Sooners, they've got to win this. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're going to get probably a one-possession spread here, even though Missouri's been playing better basketball than Oklahoma as of late. It's probably going to be somewhere between 2 and 3.5 here, expecting Missouri to be a slight road favorite. When you look at how Missouri has played on the road, Blake, that's where teams are getting them. They've lost 8 games this year, and 6 of them are on the road. If you want to count the Illinois neutral, 7 of them are away from home. They've only lost the one home game to Texas A&M by 3 points. Every other time they're getting dropped, it's on the road. They've had some decent road wins, especially early on in January. Let's just look at their road games since February. They beat Mississippi State bad. I remember that was a bad game for Mississippi State. Missouri just ran away. Then they lost at Tennessee, no shame. Went at Georgia, and then I've lost the last 2 at Arkansas and Vanderbilt. So it's a bit of a flip-flop back and forth, Blake. It's been a hard team to pin down on the road. High-volume three-point shooting team, relies a lot on the whistle, three-point or free throw line. Been a tough road team to pin down here, Blake.
Well, on the flip side of that, Oklahoma's been a tough team to pin down over the past while now. But really, look at these last 3 games. They win the home game that felt like a must-win against Mississippi State. They beat them, a couple Saturdays ago, 93-87, 6-point win. Then they lose the home game to Kentucky last Wednesday by a point. Then they go on the road in a game they probably should have won at Ole Miss and lose that one by 3. And so I'm thinking this team just keeps playing a lot of these close games. You would expect this one, I think, to be close, even though if we go back to the last meeting between these two teams, which was not that long ago, back on February 12th, Missouri was just in complete control. Led from start to finish, was up 29 at one point, wound up winning by 24. Mark Mitchell had a tremendous game, which I feel like Max, that was a long time ago, but I feel like we probably had an idea that if you're looking at a matchup scenario, Mark Mitchell versus the Oklahoma front court felt like a pretty good matchup. And I would say the same thing about this one. And I think that was the game, too. We were kind of stunned because we were like, Missouri won that game shooting only 12 threes. They made 4 of them and only had 3 offensive rebounds. And they still just took care of business because they got the free throw line 35 times. Yeah. And I think that's where, this is the kind of game where, you look at what they did the first time around to really make it work and, be able to win it. I mean, it was the usual stuff, right? Minus the 3-point numbers. They turned over a lot. Oklahoma got to the free throw line. You feel like that's the same formula here for Missouri, but I'm like, I can't help but think that Oklahoma, even despite being in this situation and losing the first time around, I would be surprised if this isn't close because, just because it's kind of that scenario where we've seen them sort of be right there in these last couple games. And think about it, right? They're legitimately probably three possessions away from probably being in the NCAA tournament right now and feeling pretty good about their chances, but yet they've lost these last 2 games. How do you respond? We've seen them respond pretty well this past week and a half. Does that keep going, or did that Ole Miss win kind of break them? We're going to find out.
Yeah, and we try to, find angles for both teams. I think one angle here is that the gambling spot of you're going to have a team that just played not too long ago that crushed one, and then it's going to be an extremely tight spread the next time around on the road as the ranked favorite at an unranked. There's just a few different spots there that do support back in Oklahoma. However, when you look at the matchup, I just feel like Oklahoma defensively is just a match made in heaven for this Missouri offense. Missouri, if they could play Oklahoma's defense every time, they would take that and run away with it. Because when you look at the free throw numbers, Oklahoma fouls a ton, one of the top 3 foul rates in the SEC. As we know, Missouri, number 1 in pretty much every category, nationally or conference, in free throw rate. And then you look at defensively, Oklahoma, one of the worst teams in the SEC at taking care of the ball offensively. Missouri feasts off the turnovers. Oklahoma has no rim protection, really. It's just that's why you say Mark Mitchell has the big game last time. I can just see Robinson, Tamar Bates, Tony Perkins, the bigger guards backing down. Missouri just really could have their way here offensively. So it's a matter of, can Oklahoma keep up at home? Yeah, they could. They can get hot, and they've shown they can put up 80, 90 any night. So
you're saying you're going to pick...
So I'm saying I'm going to pick who I think's the better basketball team. That's Missouri. I will say, though, like you said, would you be surprised if it's close? The spread being that way, Oklahoma having the heat wave offense where they have they got the number 1 shooter in the conference, whether you like it or not, get on 50%. So it can be close. Oklahoma's got the horses to keep up, but take Missouri.
Oklahoma really needs this game. They've got to win it.
Yeah.
People are doubting the Tigers after the loss at Vanderbilt, saying this could be the thing that derails their season, Max. The way they lost that game against the Commodores. Who am I to doubt that the people here, Max, could be right about that? Come on, this is a big game. It's a big game. And we know what I do in the big games like this. I'm picking Missouri.
Wow. Oh, no. No.
Well, listen, we have to test this theory before we get to March, to the NCAA tournament, okay?
Yep.
We've got to break the curse.
Yep.
All right? At some point, I've got to be able to pick the Missouri Tigers. So Missouri fans, got to do it. We got to test it out. Matchup-wise, I think it's a good matchup, but, man, Oklahoma has been right there, and it's going to be a tough one, I think, for the Tigers. But we've got to put it to the test here. All right?
Oh, man.
If it doesn't work out, then I go ahead and tell you. Spoiler alert on who I'm picking on Saturday. But we're going to put it to the test. All right.
Okay.
The tweets are coming in as we speak. Tennessee heads to Ole Miss, 8 p.m. Central on ESPN2. This is an interesting one because Ole Miss, as we said, still in fine standing in the NCAA tournament, but not exactly played their best basketball of the past little bit. They did win that game against Oklahoma on Saturdays we talked about, but before that, had some pretty disappointing performances, I'd say. And meanwhile, Tennessee coming off the Jemai Meshack game winner against the Tide. The Vols have looked really good from February 1 to March 1, only having that loss to Kentucky on there. Meanwhile, in that stretch, wins against Florida, Missouri, at Oklahoma, home against Vanderbilt, at A&M, home against Alabama. It was a good month for the Vols, a good spot to be in, probably number 1 seed as of right now. And now they head to play Ole Miss, and we talk about stylistic matchups. Now, this is one that I think should catch people's attention based on the defensive aspects for these two coaches.
Here's a stat for you. From Jordan Moore. Tennessee is 24-1 this season when they shoot 25% or better from three. 24-1 when they are 25% or better from three. When you look at
not a
Ole
high
Miss,
bar.
it is not a high bar. It is not a high bar. You look at Ole Miss defensively, past 2 games against Oklahoma, they allowed 10 of 22 for 46%. Against Auburn, 11 of 21 for 52.4%. Ole Miss does have some games where they have held teams under 25%, but that happened back early on in January. So just keep an eye on Ole Miss defensively on the perimeter and what Mark Adams draws up, because it seems like that benchmark for Tennessee, just get a few to go down, and more often than not ends up in a win.
Yeah, and I guess we kind of use the same thought here for Tennessee. Do you have a little bit of that emotional hangover after winning the game that the way they did against Alabama? Because I think, again, like Tennessee has something to play for here. Like, they still have that number 1 seed to play for, even if they're sitting there right now. Again, you lose a game like this, Alabama beats Florida, all of a sudden, Alabama's maybe jumping you again, even though, you have the victory over them. And so, and remember, too, I think that last game for Tennessee is against South Carolina. That's not a quad 4 win or anything, but that's not going to do as much for you as what Alabama's remaining schedule is going to do. And, of course, Florida's in the mix, too, when we talk about the number 1 seed potential. So I think, there is something to play for, certainly for Tennessee. And remember, too, Tennessee's never been a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So, a lot of historical type significance where I think if they win a game like this, finish strong. So you've got a little bit of that motivation. But, again, I also think Ole Miss is one of those teams that we've seen the highs of Ole Miss this season, right? They're one of those streaky type teams. They won 4 in a row to start SEC play, lost 3 in a row. They come off of losing 3 in a row, against Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Auburn, turn around with a win against Oklahoma. They keep the streak kind of, does the trend continue? They come win a game like this at home. And I think really it is going to come down to, I think Tennessee offensively on the road here against a Chris Beard defense. And, to me, that's where if you're going to see Chris Beard work his magic, this feels like one of those games against a team like Tennessee that, again, we've seen them go off some, but it does seem like, still we're going to look at some of those percentages and say, all right, it may be something where they don't shoot a ball as well on the road or something like that, right? And so I think that's it for me. I just want to see what Ole Miss tries to do defensively here to make this a game that I would expect to be played in the 60s and not in the 70s or the 80s, just based on these two teams.
One thing I'm a little bit worried about with Ole Miss is even if Tennessee comes in and doesn't shoot well, they should still get a few extra opportunities. They should win that offensive rebound battle. Ole Miss, not a great rebounding team. Really struggle more on the offensive glass. They do an okay job at the defensive, but still, I think Milicic, he had a quiet game last time out. I feel like he could really make an impact on the offensive boards, especially if, like you said, this thing's played in the 60s. Some dagger threes could be the difference in this one, some crowd silencers. But how about that point guard matchup, Ziegler on Padula? Oh, man, is that one going to be good? But Blake, for me, this one really comes down to, is Ole Miss going to be able to score enough at home? Where is the consistent offense going to come from? Well, hey, they don't turn the ball over. They do a real good job at that, actually best in the SEC. So they do have the experienced guards to weather the storm. I think this is just going to have to be one of those games for Ole Miss where you're looking at the 7 seed right now. I know Tennessee's playing for a 1 seed. Ole Miss, you're playing for, I don't want to play Duke if I win my first 8-9 game. I don't want to play Houston. You if you're Ole Miss, you grab a win here. It's the difference between playing Houston in game 2 and playing Michigan in game 2. There's a lot on the line for the Rebels here, Blake.
All right. Picks?
I don't think I've picked Ole Miss to win a game.
I know. It's been a while.
Since early February. And do I doubt the fighting Zakai Ziegler's coming off of the biggest win? Well, maybe not the biggest win. They did crush Florida, but a huge emotional win. Would you ever doubt Tennessee? I would. Give me the Rebels.
The guy who picked the Rebels to beat Auburn at home, and now he's going to pick them to beat Tennessee at home.
I owe it to him.
You owe it to the Rebels, and that's fine. I owe the Rebels nothing. So give me Tennessee on the road here. I do think because this feels like to me one of those games that we just have it's tight the whole way.
Yeah.
I think I still trust Tennessee more in those scenarios. And like I said, I just have not been overly thrilled with Ole Miss's consistency right now, and I feel like Tennessee's consistency is not getting enough respect based on how good they've been over the past month. And so I'm going to pick the Vols in this matchup. I think their defense makes a few more stops, and they get it done here. But we'll see how it plays out. Appreciate you guys, as always. Of course, you need to be appreciating our friends at Bracket Bids. It's March.
Yes.
You got to enter into that free pick'em contest or start an auction draft league with your friends, family, or coworkers. Everyone starts with the same bidding dollar. It's up to you to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure the teams you think will go the distance. Choose from multiple scoring models, including the upset bonuses, reward the bold picks. Track your teams with live in-game scoring. Watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb the standings. For league play, use that promo code SE16 for 40% off. SE16, 40% off. Download the Bracket Bids app today or visit bracketbids.com. Appreciate you guys. Again, as always, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on your notifications so you know when we go live reacting to these games. And thanks as always for watching. We'll talk to you soon at Southeastern 16.